Hi everybody, it's Martin here from Branco Customs, and welcome to this knife build along for this custom chef knife. I'm going to be using an N690 cobalt steel, which is very similar to 440C stainless, but with added cobalt for extra edge retention. I start off with a profile that's 1:1 size of the knife that I want to build. This profile had been previously drawn in 3D CAD, sent to the customer to double check the dimensions, and now I'm using the exact same size to lay out on the steel. Here I'm painting a blue layout die onto the steel that I then later use a carbide scribe in order to trace the profile of the knife onto the steel so it stays there when I'm grinding it, even if the paper template burns away. I use a thin cut-off disc on a 4-inch angle grinder to remove the bulk of the excess material. I use the milling machine in order to create a perfectly circular choil for the index finger where the blade meets the handle. The holes are drilled for the bolster attachment and for the handle scales. I even have to use a cobalt enriched drill bit in order to drill through the material effectively. Here I've loaded the knife profile onto a surface grinding attachment, which I'm using in order to taper the whole blade steel from 3mm at the pommel down to 0.5 mm at the tip. I do this on one side with half the amount of taper, shim the block, and then take the other amount off the other side in order to leave it perfectly distal taper from one end to the other. I then load it onto the flat platen in order to do the flat grinding of the main primary bevel. I then create a large array of holes in the handle in order to A, reduce weight, and B, add more surface area for glue bonding. The blade is then carefully wrapped in a high-performance stainless steel, which stops it being in contact with air while it's up at extreme temperatures above 1000 degrees centigrade, which helps to stop decarburization, which is parts of the carbon in the steel actually burning out of the steel itself, which obviously leaves holes in the steel and leaves it not looking too pretty. So this is well worthwhile. There's a complex procedure of heating the steel over certain stages, allowing it to soak at certain temperatures, and then the final quench, which is done between a couple of plates with compressed air. Then after that there's a couple of temper cycles which last for 2 hours per cycle, so again you can lose pretty much an entire day just heat treating the one blade. That's then followed by hours upon hours of hand sanding in order to remove the scale and leave a nice clean finish, which is extremely difficult to do on such a hardened steel that's so abrasion resistant. Next up shows a sequence of steps that I took in order to create the tapered yellow liners in the handle scales. Every layer is meticulously ground and then cleaned with acetone before gluing. I started by gluing the main outer carbon, followed by a yellow liner and then a black one on top. Those were then placed in the press to set overnight. The next day it was back to the surface grinder in order to grind a tapered angle onto the black section. The remaining layers were then glued up, left overnight again, and then the following day we came back to start shaping the dovetails and fitting the handles. The bolsters were cut from 316 stainless steel bar stock that's been surface ground, and the holes in the blade were used as a template to ensure an exact pitch distance between the two. The bolsters were then pretty much completely shaped, the front edges polished, and then peened into the handle for a permanent attachment. And again, countless hours of hand sanding, polishing and finishing. I carefully molded the kydex around the knife handle so it has a perfectly snug fit and just clicks into place, and then drew a template of the profile where I'm going to cut it out and insert the fasteners. The edges of the sheath were then ground and polished in order to give a nice clean edge. I then sharpened the secondary bevel on a trizex belt and then used a leather strop in order to hone off the burr. Then last but not least, I etched my logo into the blade electrically for a permanent etch that's actually deep into the metal, so it will last forever.
So this is the finished article. We got it with a kydex sheath for easy transportation. We got N690 cobalt blade, nicely hardened, pretty much a mirror polish on it, as you can probably see the camera reflection in the blade. We've got carbon fiber scales, 316 stainless steel bolster and pins, and tapered G10 layers in the handle. So we're just going to do a little sharpness test. I've got a tomato that I got given from my next door neighbour a little while ago, and I'm just going to do one chop and see if I can cut it in half. I meant to do that, just testing. Practice swing. Shutting. Now this is one I haven't tried before, but what the heck, let's give it a go. That seemed to work. And as ever, the slicing paper test.
If you would like me to build a knife for you or for someone special in your life, please get in touch.